Hi everybody, John here from All Miniatures Great and Small, and today we're going to be continuing our coverage of Heavy Gear Blitz. This time it's going to be a painting tutorial. It's our first ever painting tutorial on the channel, so I hope you guys are going to enjoy it. And I'm going to preface this by saying I'm no professional miniature painter, so I can paint to a very nice tabletop standard if I want to. What I'm going to do here and try to accomplish is painting up the Heavy Gear miniatures quickly but nicely so that they're a very nice tabletop standard, but we can still knock these guys out in a relatively quick amount of time. So what we're going to do is we're going to be starting with the Northern Forces. The first thing with the Northern Forces was the paint scheme I wanted to go with. So I liked what I saw in the rule book, and I kind of went with a variation of that. And you can see this Jaguar, kind of how I want to have my paint scheme. So this was my tester before filming. Alright, when you assemble your model, you're going to have this black plastic. And you can see it's kind of hard to see the detail on this plastic. Since I'm going for somewhat of a light paint scheme, lighter colored paint scheme, I'm going to base coat this miniature with a light color. So what I like to use is this Tamiya surface primer. So this is fine. It's a light gray color. I get it at the model shop. And after priming, you have your model. So now you can actually see some of this cool detail in the model. I gotta say, the black plastic doesn't do a lot to complement the model while you're assembling it. It looks kind of plain, it's hard to see detail, but once you hit these guys with base coat, you can make out a lot. Alright, so there we go. He's base coated and dry. We're going to go ahead and get started. Alright, so first up, we're going to do the lighter color first. So we're going to get that kind of painting inside out. We're going to paint all the places that are going to have the lighter color, and then we'll go to the overall armor color after that. So we're just going to take the highlight USMC tanker color, and we don't need much of that. We're going to give it some Lamian medium. And give it a good mix, just so that we have a little bit runnier consistency. That Vallejo can be pretty thick. Then basically we come in here and we highlight this model. Now this step is probably the only step you can be pretty sloppy on, because everything else will be covering over and correcting. Alright, so there you go. We have the U.S. Marine Corps tanker highlight applied. Next up, we're going to be going to our main color, Vallejo yellow-green. And just like before with the yellow-green, we're going to put that in here. I like this yellow-green color because it's very rich, but not too dark. And this one I found when I was painting my tester, that you really need a couple of coats to get a nice, clean, flat appearance. You don't want this base coat to be splotchy. Even though we're going to eventually be putting a wash over it, it's important that it goes on in a nice, smooth, even coat. So what we're going to do is start, and this time we've got to be a little bit careful to not get the spots that we painted with the tanker highlight. and then we will get this guy painted up and we will be back. Alright, so there you go. The green has now been applied. I did have to go back in with my U.S. Marine Corps highlight and tidy up some of the mistakes I made. So the next step will be painting the metallics. Alright, next up we're going to do the metal portions of the gear, and we're going to be using Citadel's Lead Belcher. These metallic paints I find definitely need some help, so some Lamy and medium is always good for them. And we don't need a lot. Little Lamy and medium, and mix that up a little bit. Alright, then on our model, what we're going to do is the gun, the backpack, pretty much any place that we're going to have metallics. Okay, and we'll get this model all painted up with the metallics and we'll be right back. Alright, we've given this enough time to dry. The metallics are dry, the green, the Marine Corps, it's all dry. So now we're going to apply a wash. We're going to be using this Citadel Nuln Oil Gloss. As always give the washes a good shake. And with my big brush, we're just going to slather this model. So the key is you want to do this efficiently as possible because you don't want it to dry midway through, but you want to be able to control it. So I recommend you do it in sections. So I'm going to do his arm and gun. Making sure I get everywhere. I clean the brush off. Make sure I wipe off some of the areas that I don't want a lot of wash buildup. Alright, so there's his arm. Let's do his leg. And what this will do is it'll darken the colors and give everything a nice shadow or recess to it. And we'll go right over to the other leg with this excess amount that I have here. Okay. We keep going around. Make sure we aren't missing any parts. And again, you can wipe it off. For example, on this leg here, I got a little bit too much wash. We'll take it off, kind of put it in the corners. Now we'll do his waist. And you can see how that just makes all the detail pop. A little bit too much there. All that detail's popping. Now the nice thing about this gloss wash that I can tell over the regular washes is that it seems to go into the recesses a little bit easier without such a dark pigment being put on top of the high areas. Especially if you take your time and wipe off the spots you don't want. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and completely wash this guy and let him dry, and we'll be back. Alright, now our model has had time to dry. You can see the gloss wash is shiny, but some flat coat at the end of the painting process will take care of that. And you can see how that wash has settled in and created all that beautiful shading for us. So now the next step is to go back in here with our base colors and tidy this up. So we're going to make the green a little bit lighter again. So that's going to be our next step. All right, so we've went ahead and mixed our yellow green just like we did before with a little bit of Lamian medium. And we're going to basically cover some of the area that we darkened with the wash. So we're going to reapply that base coat color. Now the nice thing is with the Lamian medium in there, we can almost make this a translucent coat or somewhat translucent. It might mean you need more coats, but it gives you much more control over the color you're applying. And the nice thing is you can apply the brighter color here, do a couple of coats here, but not quite as many or nothing on the underside to give it some natural shadow. And basically we're just going to go in here and anything we don't want hidden with wash or shaded with the Nuln Oil wash, we will go over with our base coat color again. Like so. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and do that for this guy and we'll be back for the next step. Alright, now that we've reapplied the green, we're going to go ahead and highlight it. So we're going to use our dark sand and we don't want much paint on our brush. Basically, we are highlighting the edges. Let's see if I can. And we're going to go ahead and do that for all the prominent areas that would have a lighter edge highlight. So we're going to go ahead and go around the model and strategically highlight it and then be back for the next step. Alright, so there you go. We've gone in and done some edge highlighting. Not too much, and we did it quickly. But you can definitely tell that it adds something to the model. It gives the edges more definition and they just pop more. So they look pretty good. Alright, so the next step then is going to be reapplying the base coat for our US Marine Corps. So we're going to go ahead and reapply that to the model and we'll be back. Alright, so I've redone the Marine Corps with some Lamian medium and we're ready to reapply it to areas that would be hit by the light. I don't know if you can see that. Basically, we're cleaning up the areas that were hit by maybe too much wash. Anybody seeing that leg here? We definitely want to clean some of that up. But we still want to leave the stuff in the recesses, the wash in the recesses. And this little warning triangle, one of the last steps we'll do is paint that yellow or white. So we're going to go around and finish that up and then be back for the next step. Alright, so we have reapplied the U.S. Marine Corps highlight. Next up, we're just going to do a really quick edge highlighting on this, and we're going to use our just Vallejo white. We just come in here and we're going to hit edges for that Marine Corps. And really, you don't need a lot of this, and you could almost skip this step if you wanted to. But it could definitely add another layer of pop to your model. Alright, so there you go. Maybe we'll do a little bit on this collar here. There you go, on to the next step. Alright, for the next step, we're going to go in and put some white wherever we're going to want some bright colors. So what we're going to do is we want our covers to our rocket pods to be red. We're going to want his little lens on his face to be blue. These warning signs or triangles here we might paint yellow. So there's a couple of areas where we want to add some color to the model. To do that, we're going to lay down some white first. So what we'll do is we'll use the same white that we had for our Marine Corps highlight. And we're going to come in here and basically any place that we're going to want a bright color, so the bright lens on his face, the bright red covers on the missile pod, anywhere we want this color, we're going to go ahead and add some white. So we're going to go ahead and go around. We'll probably need a couple of coats to make that white solid, but then we'll be back for our next step. Alright, so there you go. We've added white as the undercoat for all of our bright areas. Now we're going to bust out the reds and blues and add our details. Alright, for the lens we're going to use this Vallejo Game Color Electric Blue. I just like it. We don't need much on our palette at all. It's a very nice bright bluish blue. And basically we just fill in that white area we painted just a moment ago. Now that's perfectly acceptable for gaming purposes, but you could take it up a level and highlight it, which we'll do. We'll just add a little bit of white. And kind of get the bottom corner here. A little bit more white. And then we're going to use a pure white to put a highlight on there. Now when we're done, we might just actually add a gloss varnish to this lens just to make it shine a little bit more. But what we can do is, this is hard with the camera right here, add a little white dot right there. Make it look like that lens is glowing. So there you go, that's the blue part. Next up is red. For the rocket pod covers, I'm just using this Mephiston red. It's a base color from Citadel. It's a very nice dark, rich red. I guess it's not that dark. There we go. You can see I have some of that white. I might want to come in here and clean that up a little bit. There you go. Alright, next we're going to highlight up that red a little bit. We're going to use Evil Sun's Scarlet. I'll try to concentrate this on the top of these hatches just to give it a little color variation. But there you go. Alright, so now that the model itself is pretty much done except for a flat coat, we're going to go ahead and work on the base. Now, reading the fluff, it sounds like a lot of the battles take place in the desert or sandy wasteland between the north and the south. So I want to go with a kind of a sandy looking desert base. So we're going to need the miniature off the stand, and these hex bases have a gap in them. Now I could put a piece of plastic art or something like that in there, but what we're going to use is some of this Liquitex resin sand. So I've used this for a lot of basing, and it's great for texture, and we can fill up this gap with it. So what we do is, and I bought this at like Hobby Lobby for, I don't know, a few bucks, and I've had it for 6-7 years and it's still going strong. Now you obviously want to use an old nasty old brush. You don't want to use one of your good ones. And from the bottom side, you can pack this in. I found this works pretty well. And it's okay if it comes out the other side. It's not a big deal at this point. So there you go. And you can use whatever you have handy to scrape that off. You can even use your thumb. It's water soluble. So now that we've got that packed in, and once it dries, you won't be able to tell. Oops, you won't be able to tell it's there. So from here, it's just grabbing some and packing it around his feet. Now you could do the stands separate and then glue the gear onto the base after you've done the basing effect, but as long as you're a little careful, this works just fine. So we're going to go ahead and spread that all the way around and be right back. Okay, so the Liquitex resin sand has dried. It did take a couple of hours for this to dry. Here you can see, once it's in focus, that it does dry clear. And you can also use paints in there. You could mix it with the tan beforehand to make different effects and things like that. But anyway, so I've got the texture down. I'm ready for the color. I'm going to be using Vallejo's Iraqi sand as the color. And basically, just cover that up. Careful not to paint over the feet or anything like that, just because when you're on a sand base or out in the desert, you don't have a lot of sand sticking to your feet unless it's wet. So really it's pretty straightforward. You just cover the whole thing. Careful to avoid the model slopping over to that model, and give it a good texture. Once we're done, we're going to go ahead and give it a wash and then a highlight, edge it, and then call it a day. So we're going to go ahead, I'm going to go ahead and finish painting that edge, and then we'll be back. Alright, now that the Iraqi sand has dried, we're going to go ahead and apply a wash onto the sand. And you'll notice that because of that resin that we packed in here, you can't see any trace of that gap, that slot. So it's looking pretty good. So again, I'm going to be using this gloss Agrax Earthshade. I like this gloss stuff. Now you have a couple of options here. You can go straight out of the pot, or you can water it down a little bit. I like to, if you go straight out of the pot, you're going to get more of a rocky, the definitions, the shadows are going to be a lot darker. If you water it down a little bit, like I am, the shade should be a little less subtle here. And basically, we just dab it on, making sure we work it into all the crevices we can. Now, that's when I find it's kind of okay to slop a little bit of this onto the feet if you accidentally do, because since it's just a light brown, it kind of looks like dirt or buildup or something like that. Alright, and with the wash now dry, we are going to just give it a light dry brush. Using an old brush. Back with the Iraqi sand. And we can concentrate this dry brush on the edges. Trying not to, and use the word trying, to get on the model itself. So we'll use the Mournfang Brown to put the edge highlighting, the edge basing. And the important thing about this step is just making sure you get a nice thick coat. You want it to cover any of the spillage you might have had from the basing, but you don't want to obviously get onto the basing. I like this Mournfang Brown. It's a nice neutral brown. Fits in with most of the terrain I have, whether I do go desert or if I play a city table. It'll all work pretty well. So there you go. We're going to let that dry and then hit it with a flat, and we will be done. Alright, well folks, we are back after the dull coat. I just used Tester's dull coat, but GW has a purity seal, Army Painter has a anti-shine spray. They all do the same thing. They all dull the shine, so you can see now on our guy here, he is ready to fight. So that's it. That's a very simple paint job. It doesn't take very long to do, and you get a pleasing result. And from tabletop distance, these guys look pretty awesome. So there you go. Again, this was my first time doing a painting tutorial, so if you like it, please leave a comment below, give us a thumbs up, and if enough people like it, I'll definitely try to do more I'm learning, so I apologize for some of the dodgy camera angles and whatnot, but I'll get better with practice. But there you go. That is a Heavy Gear Northern Jaguar. Hope you enjoyed it, and keep on gaming.